Hi, love.
Hi.
I'm excited about this episode and also a tiny bit nervous because when you and I talk, we talk.
It's true.
And so the nervous is like, okay, let's keep on track and let's keep this relevant and like all of those things. So I'm going to start how I always start with everybody, which is to ask them what is sacrosanct, whatever that means for you in your life. And I'm going to do a exception. So I know you're going to say my son.
Yeah, I was like, oh, how do I choose?
So that's a given.
Okay.
After that, like, what is most sacrosanct in your world?
Okay, so really when I feel into this, for me it's about empowerment, and that encompasses so many different things for me because it's my authenticity and it's my courage and it's my genius and all of those things. So actually it's about empowerment. If we were to blanket term it with something, that's the energetic, that's the energy, that's how I choose to live my life, and that is a non-negotiable in my life.
Awesome. Okay, so how does that show up? So how do you notice when you're not empowered, and how do you bring yourself back to empowerment?
So for me, it's kind of like I have this visual understanding of empowerment, and it's almost like when you're empowered, your power is literally inside of you, and you have this radiant ball of light that is guiding you, and you're trusting your intuition, and you're trusting your body, and you're trusting all of that beautiful wisdom that you've already got access to guide you. And when it's out, when you're disempowered, it's when you're literally putting your power outside of you, or you're quote unquote losing it along the way. And it could be that maybe you're putting your power on somebody to show up and do something, or you're putting your power on a blueprint to work for you, or you're putting your power on this healing has to be the healing that changes my life, or those kind of things. And what I find really interesting is we're in a world where we're marketed to all the time, telling us to do this. And so how we then bring it back into ourselves means that we become connected with our own sovereignty. And I'm sure we'll talk about human design at some point, because then human design becomes such a big part of that guidance and a big understanding to how, where, why disempowerment might be happening and all of those pieces.
I love that. And it's one of my favorite, ever so subtle shifts that being in conversation with you has really helped me with. And I've had 1,000 conversations about power in my life of what is it? And what do we do with it? And is it good? And is it bad? All of the stuff, right? And one of the questions that you are famous for is, where is your power?
I love it. I didn't realize I was famous for it, but I'll own it.
But it's quite a literal thing. So when you ask me, here's a very literal thing. It's like, where is the power? And when you say it, I think of it as, where is your energy right now? And I talk about the value filter as being a way of coming back to our personal signature vibration and frequency that lives within us and that we are here to emanate into the world. And when you say, where is your power? I'm like, oh, what have I done with me? My meanness, have I spread it? Have I left it on a plane? Did I give it to someone by accident? All of that kind of stuff. And it makes all of those exercises of calling back your power, or rolling the blue tack of your energy back into your body, gives them a visual and makes them quite practical.
Yeah, definitely.
And then simultaneously, human design for me again comes into an actual, okay, well, let's take the shell off. Let's pretend we can see inside you energetically. It kind of gives us a formula to each person's unique power recipe, how they get to use their power, where it's where they have consistent access to it, where they may exchange with other people and leave some, or get really imprinted, all of that kind of stuff.
100%. It's interesting that you mentioned about, the whole concept of power. Is it good, bad, right, wrong, how we use it, all of those things. Because one of the very early awarenesses that I had with really diving deep into human design is this whole thing around hustle culture. Because there's this you know, and I like, I'm not for the hustle culture. I've lived that life. That's not what I vibe with at all. However, there becomes this really distinct, I guess, disempowered view of what hustle is. And so before I really dived into human design, I was like, oh, I can't hustle. If I'm doing lots of work, that's hustle, and I shouldn't be doing that, and all of those things. But what I realized is, by understanding my own energetic blueprint, aka human design, like when my sacral is turned on and I'm in something, and it's not hustle, but it's the use of my power, and I am empowered in order to bring my genius into the world and that creation or whatever it is. But from people looking in, sometimes that can look like hustle. And so it's really about knowing that difference about how am I designed to work, and then where does that kind of come up against the edges of those things that we're not quote unquote supposed to do, or what we should do, and all of those things. But you get to really navigate for what's true for you.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things where, for me, human design isn't a framework or a system that you get to be fitted into. It's much more like, I actually see it as a language, in the same way as I see astrology. It's a language. And interestingly, I'm terrible at learning languages when you break it down into like grammar and like, you know, all of those kind of things. But there is that in human design in some way. It becomes a language to articulate the nuance of people's aura and their soul, and like what they're here for, and how to really navigate, because it's one of the hardest things to do in the world, self and other. Like, we're here for unity and to merge and to blend with one another, but we're also here on our own journey. And that piece, I think, is probably one of the most difficult parts of being human.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also what I see that is difficult about being human is particularly this time that we're in now, where we're transitioning from one paradigm to another, where we're in this like very fear-based, reaction focused, we've got to all stick together and conform and belong, where we're moving into a paradigm of individuality and still creating that sense of connection and belonging by owning who we are and what we do. And I see that human design is such a powerful gift for that, not only for understanding ourselves, but for understanding others and how they show up and the things that they do and how they behave and all of those pieces. It gives us a lot more compassion, not only for ourselves, but for our interactions and relationships with other people as well, which then gives us permission to be in that individuality while still having that connection.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I've always, for a long time, I've talked about how what we're looking to create is interdependence, but interdependence is one of the least sexy words out there. And when we start to really think about it as a recipe or as soup, where, you know, because I make everything about food these days, but really we're trying to make the best, most hearty, most tasty, fully nutritious soup that we can. And if we're all exactly the same, it's going to be a very bland soup. Whereas if we are working together, we're going to have this really beautiful, multi-dimensional, multi-layered thing.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous, because obviously, again, with human design, we're all designed to work together. We're all designed to receive something from the other. And it's not only complementary, but it also brings us such depth of wisdom and understanding. And ultimately, that's what our soul came here to do. And that's how we create the genius inside of us, right? That's how it gets activated, is by exploring that wisdom. But if we're in this, like, I'm just me and I'm doing my thing, and we don't have those interactions, then what is it that you get to learn about yourself or about others? And how do you get to evolve? And how do you get to navigate all of that? The rich tapestry, you know, all of those, your hearty soup. How do you get to explore all of the pieces in the hearty soup?
And okay, so so then I'm trying to work out, like, your kind of specialism, I suppose, with human design is really about business. I mean, it's about everything, because everything is everything, but particularly your kind of focus is on business and how we get to work in that way. And I'm curious whether whether that has come from like your background and you going, well, I've got this background in marketing and I've been running businesses, so this is what I should focus on, or whether it evolved naturally, or whether it's in your human design. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, I could talk about that for hours. So
tell me a little bit about that.
Do my best to be concise. So a little bit of all of those things, I guess, in a way that, I'm a generator, so I'm here for mastery. And my background, I did a marketing degree. I was in corporate. I've got a master's in business. I started a business 11 years ago. I've had a lot of experience in marketing and business and entrepreneurship. But in the last, what year are we in? I don't know, 6 years. Or so. I mean, it's probably been going on longer unconsciously, but more consciously, I've been really focused on, probably 7 years, the energetics of people and then alignment in business. And, going back 7 years ago, there wasn't that much talk about alignment in business or energetics. There were still poles apart and you have to kind of piece them together. So I did all of that mastery with understanding energetics and how that worked. And that really supported me in my own business growth and then supported clients in their business growth. But what I found was when I understood human design, that all of a sudden I had a framework for each person rather than generically, like, where's your power? And going, well, this is how it feels. And actually, I'm just describing how it feels for me. So unless you're a carbon copy of me, it's not going to feel that way. So human design then was the natural piece to add in and go, oh my God, this is incredible. And of course, I followed my intuition and my sacral and just got obsessed with it and really looked at it. Makes so much sense with everything that I'm already doing. And I already had all of the models that I use now for, how to create an aligned business and sustainability, and laying human design, literally laying it over the top was like, this is incredible, because now it makes it so personalized to each person that they don't need any other blueprint in business ever again. And actually, this is what I always say, some of those blueprints you already bought that don't work for you, once you understand your human design, you might be able to get them to work for you because you've got this level of discernment about what's true for you and what's not.
I love that. That was beautifully succinct. Thanks. And like, that's the same for me, but different, right? And like, that's why I love this synergy. Is for me, the investigation has always been, because now I know, because I am, if I look at the most powerful, the centers in me that have the most energy, we are looking at my sacral, but also, in fact, I've got 3, and that's it, right? Like, I have these 3 that work together, these power pieces of my solar plexus, my ego or will, and my sacral together, and they're kind of so intertwined with one another that it's always been about, like, what do you want? What do you feel, and what are you doing with that, right? And so when people always say to me, are you a business coach? I'm like, I will work with your business, right? Like, or do you work with relationships? Yes, because that's a part of who you are. And it's like, well, are you a life coach? I'm like, it's really, but so what human design gave me is the piece that links it all together, and that essentially is allowing me to say, listen, what I'm really good at is patterns, and what I'm really good at is seeing how you do one thing is how you do everything, and where you aren't necessarily using your energy correctly right now, with a tiny little tweak of understanding and then embodiment, you're able to continue being you without having a massive personality transplant. You get to exist in the world, and that's a huge thing, but it's also just a tiny thing,
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a tiny thing for you.
Yes.
And again, this is like the 2 energies. So Abby and I are both 5-2 energy, and it's that 2 energy that has this natural genius and doesn't always see it. So when Ebony says, oh, it's just a tiny thing, for everyone else, we're like, well, is it? It's actually such a huge ripple effect in the world, and it's so liberating and expansive and magnetic, because of course everything is energetic. Everything, even when people come to work with me on their business, I'm like, you know what, we're just going to spend 3 months on your energy first, which of course sends their brain into a whole spin, like freak out, but I need funnels and I need ads. And I'm like, well, let's just play with this. And then they go and triple their income or whatever just by playing with energy. So it's huge.
It is huge. And it's not to belittle it. I think you know, this place that I play, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation actually is really about both it being a massively complex topic that can take literally years to study and embody before one should really even be sharing it, because it's huge. And then on the other side, it's like, well, these are pretty, you know, it's not new. We can remember it because it's inside all of us anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder what your take on the kind of memification and simplification of human design is.
Wow, that little question. Another one. Okay, so here's my take on it. And I remember this happening at the beginning of like internet marketing, when it obviously not right back at like .com and stuff, the .com generation, but not then. But when internet marketing was happening, and then all of a sudden people would take a course in internet marketing and then they'd be an internet marketer or something. But what happens is that if you don't understand it, then you've got no grounding into, but how does this work if the algorithm changes or whatever, you know? And here's what I see, and I love seeing, is that people get super excited and enthusiastic about human design. Like for me, yeah, do it, because it's incredible. Like the more people that understand it, the better, and the better equipped we're going to be. And imagine if children could have this knowledge now and be really supported in their human design, and how much less depression and shame and addiction, all of those things there would be in the world, you know. Mm-hmm. But also I feel like there's a piece where you have to also be honest about, can I guide somebody in integrity? And for me, integrity is super important. It's like my number one value, and having that integrity. And it's not about the time, it's about, can you genuinely hold somebody as they're going through that? Because when you're going into things like looking at human design, it's not one piece. It's not like, oh, I'm a generator, so it means this. There's a whole number of pieces that come into that, because how I operate as a generator is different to how other generators operate. And so you've got to understand like the operating system, but you've also got to understand how then you can support people to go into the depth of what might be there that disconnects them from their empowerment, aka conditioning. Sometimes that can release a whole trigger load of like dominoes falling of trauma and all of those pieces as well. So yeah, go share about it, like share, but wherever you can, be supported in how you're sharing it and what you're sharing, because there's a lot of disempowered information in the world about human design. And I work with so many people who come to me and say, oh no, I can't do this because of my human design. And I'm like, that's not what
I can't work. I'm a projector. I must, you know, like I'm a reflector and I don't know what I want. It's like all of those kind of things. So I'm like, interesting.
I can't focus. I've got an open head center. I'm like, that's not how it works. So like, I get it. I get that people are super excited, and I'm not casting shade or anything. It's not about that. It's about, this is what I see happening. Yeah. And like, let's really look at how can I be more in integrity and
I think, you know, I think that attitude is true across the board. And I think, you know, regardless of what modality you're working in or with, I can get on my high horse about embodying it first, right? I can get on my high horse about integrating it into your own reality and really understanding it from a whole range of perspectives before sharing it. And at the same time, you've got to share it in order to get that range of perspectives.
100%. And it's that piece of, where do you feel like there could be something that could support you to bring it into a place that is really empowered? And if I have any message for anybody, like, keep sharing human design, because the more the world knows about it, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But please put it through the lens of something that's empowering. I mean, the worst thing we can do actually is say, oh, you've got this open center, so it means that you've got all this conditioning. Well, all you're actually doing is replacing one belief with another set of beliefs that don't empower, serve, or create any sense of like, this is who you are, this is how your authenticity is shining through and stuff, you know? Yeah.
And I think for me, it comes back to an overall piece of it's a conversation, not not a master servant relationship. You know, if you are a seeker, you pick a teacher who's also a seeker, not one who's dogmatic and who's going to say this is who you are, because that's not the point at all. That's missing the point entirely. You know, one of my favorite things about human design is that we get to go on a journey of discovery together and be like, and how does this land? And what's your experience of this? And could it be like, really, it's question after question after question rather than answer, you know?
Right. And it's a little bit between like the difference between coaching and mentoring, isn't it? You know, let's explore this and how it lands for you versus this is what you need to do. Like it's
yeah, and I think, you know, there's again, because it's such a broad topic and it's a whole new language, and one of the things that people get to really understand is that when you're picking a reader, a bit like you would for an astrology reader or a tarot reader or or even a translator of any sort, you are picking someone for their style, their viewpoint on the world, their language, their metaphor, you know, all of those things. And two people can read the same chart or information and take a completely different analysis of it because of where they stand and who they are.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, the other thing about if you're learning about human design, looking at where you're learning from, I mean, I shared with Ebony about the AI. No, I definitely did, about the AI creator. So, you know, like the world going crazy with AI. Well, there's just not enough about human design to write blog posts from AI. But I have seen blog posts that have been written from AI, and I'm like, that is so wrong. Like, not only is it contradictory as you read it, but it's wrong. So, you know, look at where you're getting your information from and use that as a source of empowerment for you as well.
Yeah, I love that. In our behind the scenes Sacrosanct Secrets episode, we are going to talk a little bit about the certification, because I have decided whilst talking, this is how I work, that I'm going to use that space because I am a very proud affiliate and I will continue to be. And so we will talk about that in that space. So if you are listening to this and you're like, oh, actually, I really want to know more about the certification and how that works, like get in touch with either of us, but also listen to that episode. Before we move into that, I wanted to also ask you about the evolution of, I guess, business from a perspective, like you said earlier, you're a generator.
Yeah.
You're here for mastery. And I remember a particular conversation that we had in one of our groups where someone said, oh, but that looks like a money gen to me. Or, you know, and I'm really curious how, so I'm wording the question in my head, right? I would love for you to talk. So you are here as a generator with a particular purpose. And like, so a manifestor is here to realize their impact in the world. And like each of us has a purpose in terms of type. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. So rather than it being about real, like, what's it like to be a generator, or what's it like to be a manifesting generator? Can you talk a little bit to the purpose of each type, as in what they are here to learn from being that type?
Yeah, of course. So if you're a manifestor, manifestors are here to inform and initiate. If you see that, like, you've already got your chart, if you know you're a manifestor, so it'll already say initiate, inform, or something like that. And the reason why you're here to initiate and inform is because you're the catalyst for transformation and the paradigm shifts and evolution. So actually you're here to say the things that other people aren't saying, because you're here to start the movement, you're here to create the change, and using your voice to say it, like, that's your purpose in this world. But it doesn't mean you have to be like, okay, I want to share this message, but I'm going to filter it a little bit so that more people get it, or that people resonate with it. No, say the message that's coming through for you, and then you're just going to get this surge of energy anyway, and you're going to be focused on it. So bringing it into life is super important. So then
and I'm going to interrupt you. And like part of that learning is recognizing the impact that your true voice, when you are initiating and informing from that place of urge that is uniquely yours, has, right? Because, and you're not going to know that without doing it. So
yeah, I mean,
most manifestors that I know, they're like, but I don't know how it will be received. I'm like, that's the point. Like, that's literally what you're here for, is to recognize the impact that you have on others, because you can't see it.
Right, 100%. And of course it's nuanced depending on your chart, but the thing about using your voice is that it will resonate with the right people when you share it at the right time. So following that urge to share it and trusting that it will resonate with the right people. You don't need everybody, because you're like the Apple of human design, right? You're the innovator. You're here to have people go, originally, why do I need music in my pocket when I've got a stereo at home, kind of thing? And you're like, well, seriously, this is why. Let me just keep on doing my thing. So then generators and manifesting generators are very similar in that they respond to what the manifestors put down, what they say, and if they're excited, they get on board with it. If not, like, leave it alone. If it doesn't excite you, please don't do it. Okay. No, don't let your head get involved and try and excite you, because it's not right. So generators, because they have this really pure sacral energy that makes them a generator, which is like the battery pack, the mastery comes from the sacral learning over and over again. So the purpose of the generator is to bring into creation and to bring into reality, to build and all of those things. But it's also about mastery. So really, when you're saying yes to the thing that lights you up as a generator, your sacral goes all in. You're obsessed anyway. I mean, seriously, any generator listening right now, think about how you use Netflix. I literally cannot start like anything unless there's more than one season. I'm like, what's even the point? Because then it's going to come to an end, and then what am I going to do? So
yes, okay.
So it's the mastery piece, and it doesn't mean that you're here to master one thing. It doesn't mean if you are mastering, I don't know, human design right now, that's the only thing you're ever going to master, because you master that piece and then you layer on a new level of mastery and a new level of mastery, and you have all of these things that you can then bring into, like, beautiful alchemy, essentially. As a manifesting, oh, go on, sorry.
All I was going to say, and that, like, one of the key pieces I think right now for the world is that we're all overdoers, right? We've all been conditioned to work as if we're generators and we're not, and we've all been conditioned to over generate. And that we're in this beautiful time where, like, the most important thing that you said there for me is to only be dancing with the piece of life force that you want to dance with, right? Like, that lights you up, because the whole point is for you to be spreading this magnetic awe of life, right? Like that piece of vitality. And when you are dancing with something that you are obsessed with, everyone else around you is also, like, entranced by the beauty of life itself.
100%. And on a more practical note, that's also when it's going to be easier and you've got sustainable energy to actually get it done, right? Yes. You're not going to burn out. So similar for manifesting generators. However, manifesting generators are really here they move faster. So they don't have to really commit in the same way that generators do and get the thing done. They're like, oh, I want to try this and I want to try that. And so they kind of dance from one thing to another. And it doesn't always make sense until they look back and go, oh, that's why I did that. So one minute you could be learning how to be a football referee, and the next minute you want to be like a bonsai tree pruner or something. And it's all relevant. If that's what turns you on, go do the thing, and don't feel like you have to, oh, but I haven't finished learning how to do the perfect bonsai. Don't worry about it. Go to the thing that you're called to next. That's okay. That's part of your journey. And your purpose in the world is to show people that they can have joy and really live this beautiful lit up life by creating all of these different things and following their desires. And it doesn't have to be hard or boring or serious, and it just gets
and more than that, right? Like, if you're a bonsai tree pruner one day and, like, you're whatever you said, like a football referee the next.
So random. I don't know where they came from.
No, me neither. But, like, so part of the Money Gen piece is to iterate and improve, right? Like, to make things better, and also to live in the liminal spaces and to synergize. So when we're trying all these different things, like, we are the person that suddenly realized that basil and strawberry goes really well together, because no one else was eating it, basil with strawberry, before, because that's not a thing. But they might have, like, just tasted some pesto and then had a strawberry and then been like, oh my God, this works so well together. And that is the role, as far as I'm concerned, of the Money Gen, is to find these pieces where stuff blends really beautifully because you've tried them back to back and there isn't anyone else doing it in quite that way.
Yeah. So how I explain it is, it all makes sense when you look back and join the dots. You're like, oh, let's put this piece together. Yeah, of course. And also, if you're listening to this and going, but I do that as well, but I'm not Manny-Jen. Yeah, there's loads of places in your chart where this can exist. So like, I want to be super clear about the same with the manifestors, right? There's loads of places where leadership and all of those things exist. So this is overviews.
Yeah.
Okay, projectors. So projectors are here to be recognized. Everyone goes on about the invitation. Yeah, okay. But really, it's about the recognition piece. It's super important, which comes with its own sense of irony in a way, because the projector can't see the projector's self in the way that the world can see the projector. But in order to have that really beautiful recognition, the projector has to really start to understand, who am I as a person? What is my magic? And really radiate that out. So that's where things like embodiment is really, really important. Like, please, projectors, work on this.
Well, and something like that piece for me, the conversation that I have, because I'm, hard but fair in my general way of life, and it's the thing I'm kind of known for. But the projector piece that I just end up saying, like, why are you asking me? Ask yourself, because they often at the beginning of that journey for projectors, they haven't got that, like, I am the authority on me, I have an opinion, I trust myself. And so often they are looking, and I relate it to, because there's, like we said, there are many different ways that different energies can show up. I relate it because I can't tell you what being a projector is, but I can tell you what it feels like to be a 5-2 and have that sense of being projected on. And so from that place, I can say, I will tell you what I can see. I can help you see yourself, but ultimately you have to be the person who recognizes yourself first and realizes what you are having insight into, or like can see that no one else can.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because like as a 5-2 as well, and with the undefined G center, where it's like, who am I? What is my identity? It feels so different when I'm around different people.
Yeah.
And, my incarnation cross is very projector-like. So there's a lot of kind of projector vibe to me. So I can really relate to this and bringing it in. And sometimes that can feel like the hardest part in the world that we're in, because you're also surrounded by all these people who look like they've got, can we swear on this podcast?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
All these people in the world who look like they've got all their shit together and they're like doing all the things and taking all the action. Mm-hmm. However, you're like, but I don't know who I am or how to do this. Really, that recognition piece and not getting swept away with all of the doing and the busyness that the society has told us we're supposed to do is so important, because what's going to happen is, like, I know this is an analogy that gets used a lot, but you become the lighthouse, and literally people get to see your magnificence from what you're beaming out into the world. And your purpose is to show us that there is a more efficient and effective way to get things done, so that we can live a life that is full of purpose and full of joy. And it's said that the projectors are the new age CEOs because of the unique insight that you have to guide energy, to transmute, to alchemize energy, to bring this sense of efficiency and effectiveness. And it's a little bit like, and it's similar for manifestors and reflectors as well, to know that you wait for the perfect time to move and then things happen really fast. But if you keep trying to do the movement that you're seeing around you from the generators and manifesting generators, or from the conditioning that society says, it's going to become harder, you're going to be burnt out. And so when it's your time, quote unquote, your time, then you don't have the resource to do it. And it's not going to have the impact in the world that actually your heart desires.
Right.
Reflectors.
Yeah.
So reflectors have no defined centers. So if you're a reflector listening, you'll see on your chart there's no defined centers. And so where everybody else has these defined centers, and they have this kind of solar energy, because those defined centers radiate out, you're actually what's known in human design world as a lunar being, because you are really in tune with the moon. And that's why it says that you have a lunar wait a lunar cycle. I really don't like the word wait in human design, which is why I always move away from it. Like
connect with the moon is what it should say.
Exactly, connect with the moon, because what is actually happening is the moon moves through its journey over 28 days. You're feeling lots of different energy because it's going to activate different gates, which will at times give you defined centers. It will give you different experiences in your own body. So you're designed to not be rushing into decisions, not be doing loads of things, not to be confusing yourself with the people that you're around, but to have this really beautiful alone time, not all of the time, by the way, like don't go full on hermit.
Well, and the reflectors I know can be some of the most sociable people. And they've got incredible range, a bit like our moon, right? Like they have a moment when they are full in the sky, and then they go all the way down to this tiny sliver. And it's so empowering, I find, when working with reflectors, to help them see and embody their fullness of their range.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really, the more you connect in with your body and trust yourself, the more you're going to feel those differences. And the more that you spend time like understanding this is other people's energy versus this is what I'm feeling, which is why the alone time is so important, the more you're going to be able to really start to discern what is true for you. So having that awareness that when you're around other people, you're feeling a lot of their energy. And that's okay, because that's where your wisdom comes from. Like for me, the undefined centers are the best things in human design. I'm like, oh my goodness, the wisdom, the different experiences we can feel in that space. And it's important to come back to, okay, grounding into me, this is me, and this is what I feel, and this is what is true for me. So the reflectors actually are here to be the speakers of the truth, to reflect back to us what we need to understand and what we need to evolve into and expand, and all of those beautiful things for paradigm movement. You know, like the manifestor starts the process with here's the idea I've got, and the reflector, when it moves all the way through everybody else, because we all have a role to play, it's almost like the reflector says, yeah, that was great, this bit not so great, so here's what I need to share with you. And it's a really beautiful gift, really beautiful.
Thank you for that. And I realized that, you know, trying to really succinctly share what each type is for without putting all the other information in can be really, really difficult. So I appreciate that taste. If people want to come and find out more, maybe get their own chart, have a little bit more of an investigate, come and explore all the millions of trainings that you have that they can come and listen to. Where's the best place for them to come?
So you can find me at the HD Biz, and at the hdbiz.com is the website. I always get a bit stumped. So I'm like, what is it? I'm so used to sharing links. At the HD Biz on Instagram, and the website is www.thehdbiz.com. I don't know. Can we put links? Because I can't remember off the top of my head.
So they will be in the show notes for you to click on easily.
So much easier for me too. And you can come find me on Facebook as well. The Human Design Community is my Facebook group.
And there's tons of awesomeness always happening in there. And it's a really great place to have conversations and to ask stuff and to have Shari respond. So this has been awesome. I could talk to you all day. If you are interested in finding out about getting certified and what the certification looks like, then come and listen to the next part of this conversation. Thank you, my love.
Thank you, lovely.